That's right, buddy. AG1. Oh, wait, NVS.
Good morning and welcome. It's a bright, sunny morning there.
Good Lord. You kidding me right now?
Jeez, did you lose your window shade or something?
No, my window shade is the natural cloud cover, the marine layer that normally exists, but we have an incredibly sort of a tropical vibe here this morning in Southern California, down in San Diego. There's tropical clouds and there's almost like the threat of some pitter patter on the sand, small little dimples from tropical rainfall.
We had lightning just like a couple hours ago, and then it seemed like 10 seconds until the thunder. So it wasn't close, but unusual for sure.
I love this tropical
Me too.
vibe.
Me too. Well, you're right. NVS, surfnvs.com is the website. So these Apex series fins that we always talk about, they're made out of G10 laminate. So they're hard, they're thin foils, but they're also guaranteed for lifetime. They come with a lifetime warranty. So I don't know if you've ever broken a fin before. I haven't, but you certainly do nick them and ding them. And this lifetime warranty allows you to get a new set if that ever were to happen. But it wouldn't happen because the G10 is so strong.
Well, it's interesting that you brought that up because I reached out to the guys at NVS about a fin that I want custom made. And the reason I want it custom made is that the one that I had broke. It broke at the
No
base.
way.
Yeah. Now, I'm not sure. I think it broke, not because I was surfing, just because, I did something to it. Like I put in too many boards on top of it on accident or something silly like that. Like it's no fault.
Stressed it out.
Yeah, it's no fault of the manufacturer. It was user error, but one of my favorite fins, which they don't make anymore, and I absolutely love these fins. And I was lucky enough to ride them recently. Somebody had a set down in Mexico in December, and I rode them, and I was like, oh yeah, these. And I've always loved those fins. So anyway, I reached out to Leif. Is it Leif?
Yeah,
Leif
Leif.
at NVS Fins, and he's kind enough to. They're very responsive as far as customer service. So we're in the process, I believe, of maybe getting those fins custom made for me in the G10.
That's the other detail that listeners should know is that they can do small run of customs, even one-offs. But if you're a surfboard shaper and you've wanted a specific fin design for a board model, but maybe you've talked to fin companies and they need like you have to order 100 units or whatever it is, talk to NVS. They will do a small batch for you. They have the ability to. And from what I understand, it's cheaper than a lot of other, than just paying retail for those things. So surfnvs.com, they are also available at our retail partner, which is realwatersports.com. And they've got everything. They've got Stu Kenson's got a fin with them. Taylor Knox has a set of fins. Album has a set of, there's a whole range of board builders that are also available at realwatersports.com, and you can buy the matching fins there too. So it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, Real Water Sports for your hard good needs, including the great NVS fins. And I have a set of those Taylor Knox twin fins, I believe it is, that they made. And I wonder where those are. Those are in a board somewhere in my shed. I got to pull those out and put those. I got a new board. I'm super psyched on it. And I'm just changing around fins. I had this thought too. We always talk, you and I, about, how important it is to change fins out. And it is, right? But it's something we never do. And I was thinking about like some of the demos that some of the great board companies put on, like Firewire puts on a great demo. And there's some other board builders that are really good at doing demos. Like they have it down, you know what I mean? But what we miss is a fin demo. Like the ideal thing would be for somebody, and I don't even know, this might just be out of a labor of love. I don't think there's any way to make any money on this, but regardless, it doesn't matter. Wouldn't it be cool if you could go to a demo and you just bring your boards and the demo has all of your options? Like it's got your favorite fins in both FCS and future boxes, and it's got everything so that you could literally go in the board that you love. You could catch two waves, come in.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like that type of demo has never been done. A purely fin demo that's purely based on let's really figure out why your board, which fins make your board go so great.
NVS, we're looking at you. Aren't you doing a surfboard demo for the boardroom show?
Yeah, but again, there's been great surfboard demos.
Well, I'm saying NVS should show up to the surfboard demo with this exact concept in mind.
It would be a good one.
There you go. Bang.
Boom.
All right, Scott. Well, on to today's show.
Yeah, guy. A phrase that we're not really sure what's the word when
etymology.
Thank you. We're not sure of the etymology of the phrase. Can the etymology be for a phrase, or is that a specific word? I think etymology is a specific word.
Yeah, we're going to expand its definition though for a phrase.
The phrase "yeah, guy." We're not sure where it comes from, is what we're trying to say here. I would tell you that it emanates from the Seaside parking lot about 1977, but it may have first come out of the mouth of Todd Martin. Who knows? We're not sure. Maybe it was Lonnie Brothers. We're not sure, but
it feels like the kind of transition era for surfboards where it was happening simultaneously at a couple of different places. Like everybody kind of came to the same conclusion that you see your buddy and you're like, yeah. And then you just add on a guy afterwards. So you just see him and you're happy and you're just like, yeah, guy. And I think, yeah, around that era, it was probably happening in Santa Cruz and Florida and Seaside all around that time.
Oh my, it coincides with Breakout magazine, I think.
There you go. You were just talking about a new surfboard that you're in love with.
Yeah.
I saw the Instagram post.
Yeah, Rainbow surfboards. My friend John made me a board, Rainbow surfboards, and it's a what he calls a Quan, which is it's got an interesting rail. It's kind of got like a brewer rail, the old brewer rail from Hawaii, where it's got a flat deck, and then the rail it doesn't pinch. It almost just steps down a little bit, not much. And so it's got plenty of volume. And he gave me this great set of fins that go with the design. They're like a Rich Pavel fin concept, where you take the keel and you cut the keel in half and you separate the fins like that. Instead of the keel, it turns into two fins. But I personally feel like that's a lot of fin for this tail. It's more of a pulled in kind of twin fin tail. So I like the fins that John gave me. I think in bigger ways, it's the perfect fin setup. But for small little summertime 2 to 3, footers, I'm looking for something a little bit more snappy. And that's why I'm asking the guys at NVS to make me these Tom Carroll Aqua line fins that have way more cant.
Yeah.
They're really canted out, and they loosen up the board a lot.
They don't have the rake. They're kind of still not block shaped, but a little bit block shaped.
Do you mean the Quan fins or the Tom Carroll ones?
The Tom Carroll.
Yeah, no, there's they're a unique outline for sure. I guess, yeah.
But they do have rake.
But the main characteristic is, there's a little bit of rake, and you can find them online, just no one has them for sale. Like you could see the type of, but the problem is when you look at images online about that fin, it doesn't show the important part, which is they're not like straight up. They cant out quite a bit.
Right. Yeah, that Quan board, I thought that you misspelled quad.
Yeah.
But the flat deck to the rail transition that you're talking about showed up well in the Instagram photo. Like the lighting was just right that you could kind of see that almost edge on the deck to the rail.
Yeah.
What's the length, width, and all that stuff?
Oh, it's 6'2". It's 20 3/4, and it's 2 9/16, which is a little more than 2.5 thick. But I think it's a little fuller than that. Actually, it feels pretty full, which I'm fine with. At my age, what I'm doing, I love a little bit more rail, more foam to paddle around.
Yeah, interesting. It looks interesting.
Yeah, it's a cool
Looks
board. It's a cool board.
looks
I've had boards similar to it. It's kind of like the Pavel speed dialer, but
yeah.
just refined, like more like just a different pulled in the tail.
Yeah. Um, so a movie I watched this past week, I'm only halfway through it, but The Yin and Yang of Gerry Lopez, documented. It's a documentary about Gerry Lopez, directed by Stacy Peralta. I think it's produced by Patagonia. Have you seen it yet?
No, I haven't seen it. I was invited to go see it at the La Paloma. There was a big premiere this weekend here in Encinitas, and I was invited to go, but something came up and I couldn't get to it.
Um, so, any idea why it's titled The Yin and Yang of Gerry Lopez?
Well, I'm going to guess it has something to do with um, this character that out of the water has kind of got a very peaceful, serene vibe, and in the water, maybe that's not the same situation. I don't know.
Nailed it. Have you
Yeah.
talked to Stacy Peralta about this?
No, have you?
No. But you're entirely right. Yeah, the kind of concept, or in order to become Mr. Pipeline, you really have to be alpha male, dogged, and but in order to, well, I should say, in order to have that place in the lineup, that's how you have to become. But in order to become Mr. Pipeline in the sense of cerebral with the wave and stylish and all that, the amazing surfing that he was doing, the alpha thing actually doesn't help. In order to have that level of style and connectedness with the ocean, you need to be the Zen master. And so that is what the film is kind of about, is getting to the bottom of Gerry as a human being who's able to go from one kind of end of the dichotomy to the other. And as Gerry explains it, that's what yoga is all about. Yoga isn't just about being calm all the time. It's about really teetering on the edge of, I don't know what, but pushing your body to its limits while at the same time being completely fluid.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds interesting. I want to see the film. I mean, anything that Stacy does is probably going to be pretty good. I don't know if there's any deep dive conflict in Gerry's life that's worthy of pulling out in a storyline or not. I sense that Stacy's pretty focused on the theme that he chose, and I'm sure it's well done.
Well, that is the conflict. And I agree with you. It's not, I don't know, it's not as raw as somebody who like came from some hard Scrabble upbringing, but it still does it still is an interesting dive into Gerry.
Yeah.
And the way that it opens, the way that they kind of showcase that conflict is Gerry coming to terms with and apologizing for burning countless people at Pipeline and specifically at G-Land. And he's just basically saying, look, I knew that those people basically couldn't do anything or say anything to me about it. And I knew that I had put in the hard yards. And if a wave was coming that I wanted, I'm going full stop, no questions asked. I'm just going. Yeah. And he's like, a lot of these people, are on the trip of their lifetime, catching the single wave of their lifetime. And for me, it's one of 1,000 that I'm going to be getting, but I'm going. And he was apologetic about it.
That's interesting. Gerry has been known to catch a few waves. If you've ever surfed with him, and you also know it's Gerry. What am I going to do?
That's exactly what he was saying.
And whatever. I always look at it like, am I capable of being that person? And the answer, sadly, is yes. And it's not right. Bottom line is, it's not right. The other thing that I'm assuming that this movie pulls out is, like yin and yang, like there's a sense that you have to deflate your ego to be in a Zen-like state. I think the whole thing about Zen is you're egoless, there's a lot of humility. You're just as one with nature and with the cosmos. And interesting story, kind of. Yesterday I was meditating, yesterday morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. I wake up dog goes outside, I go out with it and I sit and I start meditating. And I think to myself, you know what I'm going to do, which I never do. I'm going to chant Om, you know. By the way, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm going to chant. So I go out to meditate and I go, I'm going to chant Om. And I had randomly heard somewhere, I forget where I read it, the day before. Somebody clever said, Om is the dial tone of the universe. And I thought to myself, oh, I'm going to chant Om. And I do meditate, but I don't ever chant Om. And so I go out there and I close my eyes and I go, Om, and I try to get that vibration kind of going, you know, which the Om thing is supposed to do, like Om, and it's supposed to bring up this, and that's why it's the dial tone of the universe. And as soon as I do it, a moth flies straight into my head, like it just lands there on my forehead. And I immediately, I'm like, oh my God, what the hell?
Yeah, totally.
And I'm thinking the Om thing worked. Like the Om thing attracted this moth straight to my head.
That is so funny.
But that was we took an offshoot, an off-road that we went a different direction there, but we were talking about Gerry and the deflation of the ego.
So when you and your dog are relieving yourself on the lawn at 5 a.m.
Wait a minute.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
If you want to know if he picks up after me, the answer is no.
That's the way it should be. We own them. They don't own us. Why are we picking up their poop?
Have you ever done that? Have you ever gone out to relieve your dog and relieved yourself at the same time? Have you ever?
I have not, because I don't go out with the dog. We just let her go out on her own.
There's nothing more fulfilling. That's
what I was going to say. You're sitting there, you're chanting Om, meditating. I think that would help facilitate the process. One other thing about Gerry that I forgot, like as the story was unfolding, I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember hearing about this, was when he ripped himself a new a-hole at Pipeline by wiping out on that classic, you know, lightning bolt pin single fin. So you know what that fin looks like. He wiped out, the board flipped over and he got skewered by it right in his butt crack. And I had heard this story in the past that, you know, oh, Gerry basically punctured himself a new butthole. Well, they show a photograph of it in the documentary.
Gnarly. That might be too much info.
I was aghast. I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, it is as bad as you would imagine it. Gnarly. Because the way that Rory Russell went to the hospital with him. So the way that Rory was telling the story was that Gerry, you know, felt back there and he feels the blood and he feels like the opening of the skin, like the wound. And he basically slides all 4 fingers into the wound. And he's just like, oh no, this is bad. You know, so then he gets to the beach and shows it to Rory, and Rory's like, we're going to the hospital immediately. But so you consider that you can put your all 4 fingers inside. That's how large the size of this wound was. And it wasn't like on the side of the cheek. It was like in the crack. So it's in a awful position. But if you didn't want to already see the film, this one image alone. Oh, and I was just thinking, good on them for even taking the photograph back when it happened, because in the melee, you wouldn't, I mean, now we have iPhones, so I guess you might have, but back then you didn't have an iPhone to have the kind of foresight to take a photo.
The photo probably came from like the Kahuku hospital or something.
Yeah, right? Maybe. Yeah.
That's the other thing, going to the Kahuku hospital in 1976 or whatever.
I think they said that they just did some little treatment and then took him to Queens.
Yeah.
At any rate, highly recommended. It is not available for the public. Actually, it's doing a tour right now. So you could see it in a theater if you live anywhere near the beach or wherever they'd be screening it. But eventually, I'm sure it'll be available online.
And you should go see it. I really wanted to see it. I mean, it was kind of a big event here. You know, Gerry was here. There was a big to do here in Encinitas. The Patagonia store had an event beforehand. They all went to the La Paloma, and Gerry was gracious as he always is. He's so good with the public, and his, you know, he gets it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It should be stated, since we're talking about surfboards all the time, his son, Alex Lopez, shapes boards now, not far from your neck of the woods. I think he's in San Clemente, building in San Clemente now. But
He'd be a cool guy to get for the shape off at the boardroom show. I'd love to do that. I'll talk to Timmy, see about doing that.
boom, there you
That
go.
would be that
Look
would
at
be fun. That would be fun, wouldn't it?
Totally. And he's building cool boards too.
I bet. I know he was buddies with Ryan Lovelace.
Yeah, that's right. Because he was helping the year that Gerry was the honoree at the boardroom show. I think Alex was helping that year, right?
Yeah.
And then Ryan ended up winning that because he had awareness. Kind of, he's friends with Alex, so he knows those boards fairly well. Well, moving on from the yin and yang of Gerry Lopez, the El Salvador competition ended, I think, on the day that we recorded last week.
Yeah.
It's been a week now, so we don't have to do a deep dive, but we should at least state Griffin Colapinto won over Felipe Toledo. Stephanie Gilmore over Lakey Peterson. This is Stephanie Gilmore's 33rd CT win, which is pretty incredible. And she jumps into the top 5 with this. So that's a huge deal.
That is. And the semifinal, the finals day was obviously the best day of the event as far as the waves themselves.
Well, the afternoon before finals day is when it got glassy and perfect. And then finals day was a step down from that, but still probably better than the rest of the competition. But let's talk about the good. Let's talk about the good afternoon.
Yeah.
People we're so overhyping it. Like, oh my God, the waves are perfect. Everybody's calling it J-Bay of Latin America. Jordy Smith went in his post-heat interview and was like, anybody who says that needs to be slapped, which I appreciated Jordy saying. The reality was, based on what we had seen all week, that surf looked phenomenal. And by all means, you and I would love to surf it. It's phenomenal for our standards, but it's not a world-class wave for the championship tour to be surfing. You know what I mean? Like, it's a step up from what we had seen all week. It's a step up from a bunch of the beach breaks we ran in last year. It's still not J-Bay. It's still not Cloud Break. It's still not Chopu or Pipeline or anything like that. So there's a lot of point breaks in the world that are of that quality. There's very few reef breaks in the world that are of Cloud Breaks quality.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm one of the guys that deserves to be slapped. I think last time I said it, I basically kind of compared it to J-Bay. And I will say that I have surfed it really good, like 4 to 6 feet with 8-foot sets and groomed offshore breeze, like a strong 5-knot wind that was grooming it. And there was like one section that had similarities to maybe being J-Bay. But let's be clear. What I'm trying to convey here is that there might be moments, but Punta Roca is a super fun wave. It's a great cobblestone point. It is nowhere near J-Bay. J-Bay is on a whole nother level. You're talking, first of all, you're talking Southern Ocean swell that's just like, mind-blowingly powerful. And you're talking, whatever it is, 1.5 miles. It's a frig. J-Bay is a long point. You only ever really see the top, that one really killer section, which is 300 yards. Yeah. There's another 400 yards down from there that people surf that you don't even, it's like, not even seen. So it's just a different, there's no way you can compare it. And I did see what Jordy said. And in fact, I saw it on your Instagram post, and it was well put, and it's nice to see. That's the one thing we're going to miss about Jordy when he falls off, whenever that is. But he's definitely, unfiltered, or as unfiltered as they come. I'm sure he has a bit of a filter on him because he's a professional, but it's nice to see the unfiltered.
The other detail about J-Bay versus Punta Roca is, you said when you surfed Punta Roca and it was good, it was 4 to 6 feet. We don't even start talking about J-Bay until it's at least 4 to 6 feet. And
Yeah.
then it's where it's actually, oh, okay, it's actually on today, maybe, So we're looking at 10 feet for J Bay when it's good.
The thing about J Bay that's so, if you're new, especially not the local guys that surf it all the time, but if you've never surfed there and you paddle out there and you surf there, and by the way, I've never been there, so I'm just speaking from what I see, but there's an 8-foot wall that's stretching out in front of you for 400 yards. And your go-to is, oh my God, I've got to haul ass to make the section. When in fact, you kind of need to be hanging around where it's actually breaking. But your gut instinct is, there's no way I'm going to make this, when it just kind of rolls in and
which you end up, that's why you see people pumping down the line and never doing a turn at J Bay. Even on the championship tour, you'll see people make that mistake, which is why Tom Curran's first wave at J Bay is so iconic.
Yeah.
The fact that he dug in to those bottom turns that are like almost pointing at the beach, straight at the beach, going up and doing big off the tops is just remarkable, that he paced that wave so well.
That's a great point. And that, what we just kind of excavated somewhere, when people are watching that footage of Tom at J Bay's first wave, that should be front and center, those comments that like, yeah, he surfs it incredible. And oh my God, this is his first wave. And did you know, like, this is what makes him special, what you just mentioned.
Totally.
And Punta Roca never has 400 yards of 8-foot swell out in front of you wrapping in and puts your heart in your throat.
Right. Still a good wave.
Super fun wave.
Not a world-class championship tour quality, even on that one good day. Anyways, so the rankings, let's discuss the rankings real quick. We're looking at Rio starting in the next day or two. Felipe Toledo is in the lead still. He has 1 win and 3 second place finishes. Jack Robinson has 2 wins. Griffin Colapinto now has 2 wins. This is a tight title race.
Yeah, it's looking really good. But it's not really a title race. It's a race to see who the top 5 will be. And then we go to rippable 4 to 6 foot lowers, and I think it does a disservice to the world champion, whoever that might be.
Well, a little bit. If it's this tight where the points are all that close, it's less of a disservice. If Felipe ran away with the first place, as Gabriel did last year, then it would become a disservice if somebody leapfrogged him. But I think, and I still agree with what you're saying, the concept has flaws, but it's less of a disservice when it's looking this way. And the other thing is, those 3 guys are all really kind of equal surfers for lowers. They're equally adept at that style of surfing.
Yeah, I don't know. I sense that Felipe is a little bit above all of them. The top 5, I'm looking at the top 5, Jack Robinson, Griffin. If it was these 5 right now, Idolo and Kanoa. Well, Idolo and Felipe, I think, I don't know, Griffin sure is mind-blowing.
You could put Griffin in that conversation now. He's really elevated his game this year, especially with those 2 wins. Yeah. I mean, look, he took out Felipe in this event in those types of conditions, so that says something.
I guess my problem is these guys could bomb at 8-foot Chopu, lose in the first round.
Exactly.
And it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
And that kind of bums me out.
Well, you say these guys, Jack Robinson won it.
Right.
Which is worth considering. That's Felipe. If Felipe, you need that to count towards the title, ultimately, is what it comes down to.
Yeah, you do. And then, 5th place is Kanoa Igarashi. He's got 28,000 points. The thing that's interesting here is that, for instance, Jake Marshall could win an event and be really close to the top 5, if not in the top 5.
Yeah.
So what we talked about last time was, there's some people that don't really need to be surfing for much. And, I think conventional wisdom would say, yeah, it's true. But it's also true mathematically that there's a lot of guys still in this thing. Now
Fascinating.
that assumes that the top 5 bomb while Jake Marshall wins, in Rio, which doubt that's going to happen. So when you really think about the possibilities after Rio, I'll tell you what. In fact, I made my fantasy team this morning, and guess who's on it? Miguel Pupo, Caio Abelli is on it. Sammy Pupos, both the Pupos are on my team. Gabe Medina, Joao's, but he's not one that could jump into but I'm looking at guys that could, make a big leap here. And I kind of hope I hope there's a shakeup. I hope that Chopu means something,
Me too.
And so I'm hoping for major upsets. I would like it if all 5 of these guys lost out in the elimination round.
I'd be fine with that too. I think it offers a major opportunity for Kelly Slater.
It absolutely. Kelly, if he went to Rio, could win and be right there. He's at 18,000 points.
So that's the question. Is Kelly, he hasn't officially withdrawn from Rio. But I'll look to see if he's in the draw.
I thought they replaced.
But Kelly, Kelly withdrew from El Salvador, right? Citing injury. Yeah. Somebody messaged me from Bali saying they saw Kelly training hard with, I forget with who, but with somebody there. They're like, he's not injured at all. I saw him training hard. He's been surfing. Kelly's not injured. He just didn't want to go to El Salvador, right? And so he's traditionally not gone to Brazil many times. And he just takes it as a throwaway. So I'm wondering if we're going to see him actually in Brazil.
He's listed as injured on the fantasy site. You cannot pick him on the fantasy site. He's listed as injured on the WSL's fantasy site.
I'm looking at the heat draw right now, and he is not in the heat draw. So Kelly's officially out. Man, did they not press release this?
How did we find out? You and I? No, that
we're just discussing it. We're figuring it out.
No, we talked about it last week.
We talked about him being out of El Salvador, but did we talk about him being out of Rio?
Yeah, well, I saw somewhere that he was not going to Rio,
okay.
El Salvador or Rio.
Okay. I was thinking John was the one that I was aware was out of both events. I didn't know Kelly was.
Yeah.
Okay. My mistake then. Well, anyways, Chopu could benefit Kelly if he does well there. If I was, and J Bay, by the way, we're not playing Survival League anymore because we both got booted out with our losses when we picked Griffin Colapinto in the one event.
Thanks, Griffin.
In the one event that he didn't win this year, essentially, and the one heat that Owen Wright made somehow. Anyways, I'm still pissed about it. If I were to be playing Survival League, my pick for Rio, even though I already picked him for El Salvador in this hypothetical game.
Okay.
Felipe Toledo. Listen to this. Felipe Toledo won Rio in 2015, 2018, 2019. So he's won the last 2 times they've run an event there.
Yeah, that's the problem with my hopes of a shakeup is that this event's at Rio, and my entire team is Brazilians except for Ethan Ewing. So, it's just.
By the way, Gabriel's never won there.
I think it's actually going to be exciting. I'm kind of obviously with my fantasy team, but it would be cool if it was like Felipe, Idolo, Gabe, Jadson, Miguel Pupo, Sammy Pupo, Caio Abelli. Like if it was an all Brazilian affair, like from the quarterfinals on, throw in like whoever, Baron Mamiya and Caleb Robson or whatever. But you know what I mean? As much as I want there to be a huge shakeup, I think it'd be kind of fun for Brazil if there was a big Brazilian contingent. And let's face it, they make up a huge chunk of the tour.
Yeah, they do. Well, so I'm looking at Felipe. This is a 3-peat opportunity. This really does feel like his year. It feels when you look at him surf, like his foot is on the gas pedal. There's a ton of confidence. I don't see him tripping up. I don't know who you would pit him against.
Well, here's the problem
which he would lose
with your survival pick is that Felipe Toledo has been picked already. Like for the mass quantities, you know, the majority of the people have already picked Felipe is my point. So let's be realistic. I think this is an opportunity for a Caio Abelli. At this point in the game, you're kind of like you're dealing with scraps, and that's what makes it fun when you get to this level.
Yeah.
And it also makes it fun for the guys that are smart and held on to Felipe. There are going to be a couple of those guys that are like, I'm waiting on this.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of how you win. You hope that one of your freaky picks gets through early in this whole season so that you're sitting on a Caio. And frankly, people are sitting on Gabe because Gabe wasn't on the tour.
And that's the question for me, or for you from me, is how do you think Gabe does here? Because again, Gabe's never won.
Gabe
That
wins.
is,
Gabe
you think,
wins.
and he's coming into this season late. Like there's a bunch of question marks around
He
Gabe.
wins. He's just coming into his form. Gabe wins this event. Gabe Medina is going to be the winner.
Okay.
And he's going to be the obvious, he would be the obvious survival league pick if you haven't already, you know, if you didn't pick him for G-Land or else out.
Right.
Which many people did, because you and I were pumping him pretty big for G-Land.
Yeah. Well, it starts in 20 hours. So
the swell looks pretty good. The forecast looks good. Yeah.
Do you know where they're running? Oh, I guess you want it now, but which part of the beach they'd be running?
Yeah, we won't know. And, you know, apparently if it's smaller, it's those kind of closeout rampy lefts. When it gets big, it's off the jetty, and there's some rights off the jetty into a ramp. Like we saw remember we saw the keg guy do well there.
Wade Carmichael.
Yeah,
but
Wade.
Felipe won that year too. So Felipe can win in those conditions, or he can win in small conditions. So
yeah.
Money's kind of on Felipe, but I'm interested in this Felipe title race concept because despite how phenomenal of a surfer he is, I'm not convinced he's the best surfer in the world by a long margin. I would name a bunch of people ahead of him.
Look at his 2 losses, David. I mean, not his losses, but where he's done really bad. Pipe and Sunset.
Yeah.
And he's coming into, and G-Land was 4 feet. Maybe.
Yeah.
And so if Chopu's solid, and it kind of has to be solid, like Chopu, I mean, it can be 3 to 4 feet of Chopu, but you know, we're hoping that it's normal Chopu and it'll be 6 to 8 and insane. And if he doesn't perform there, then he wins the world title, you're like, okay, he failed me at Pipe, Sunset, and macking Chopu.
Yeah.
And that's why the final 5 thing needs to be held at Waves of Consequence. Frankly, it needs to be held at Chopu or Pipeline. That's where that thing needs to be held.
We always said that Felipe wouldn't win a world title until he figured out the barreling reef break thing. But the reason why he's been kind of on track to win a title this year is because Gabriel Medina didn't surf the first half of the season. Idolo's got a girlfriend and a 6-pack that he's more concerned about. And so John's injured, you know, and so the kind of key competitors have dethroned themselves. It wasn't Felipe that's actually beat them at the top of their game. They all, even though I think Felipe is actually at the top of his game now, they all kind of took themselves out of the game, which has offered an opportunity for Griffin to kind of elevate his status, for Jack Robinson to elevate his status, both of whom I think are hitting their strides as well. But I don't know that they would even be able to break through Gabriel at the top of his game, John at the top of his game, certainly not in barreling reef passes.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know. I want Felipe to win the world title, but I want him to do it with the monkey off his back. And hopefully Chopu provides that opportunity and Felipe wins the world title. That would be fine because we all like Felipe. And frankly, he's bringing people's game up to a level that's mind-blowing. You know, like he's lifting the level of performance surfing up. And
I think Griffin can attribute a lot of his new gear that he's found to Felipe, I would imagine.
Speaking of Griffin, I just called out Felipe on his poor performances in Waves of Consequence. Griffin has horrible performances this year at Pipe and at Sunset Beach.
That's surprising to me.
Worse than Felipe. But we all look at Griffin and go, that guy charges. I know that, you know, he's going to put the pedal to the metal.
Because we've seen him charge. We've seen Felipe cowering on the shoulder. So
yeah. We'll see what happens. I mean, the Chopu event, in some ways, it might not mean a lot to the top five. We'll see how it shakes out after after Brazil, but it will matter for those of us that are hanging an asterisk on Felipe Toledo here in ways of consequence. We'd like to see that monkey shaken. We need to see Felipe in the semis or better in macking Chopu.
Yeah. Well, it's a bummer that we look at the schedule and we just want to breeze past El Salvador, Rio. Like, I look at those events and I know Rio's right upon us, and I'm like, let's just hit the fast forward button. Let's just go to Chopu. Like, okay, I guess we'll have to like look at the results of this event, but I'm not watching every heat. You know what I mean?
No.
It's a bummer that there's like half the stops on tour that we're just looking to get past so that we can go to the good ones.
It says so much about what you and I and the masses have been talking about. Like,
Yeah.
and it's in a weird way, there's parallels to the PGA Golf Tour. There's the four majors that everyone geeks out on, and then there's like the Kemper Open in Ohio that nobody gives a shit about.
Yeah.
And the challenge is, how can the tour excite us? And we've ad nauseum told them how to do that. And I'm not going to go into it again here.
Well, you know what's funny is last week they also finished a QS event at Krui in Sumatra, the Krui Pro.
Yeah.
It was pumping.
Yeah.
It was so good. Jesse Mendez took out Billy Stearman in the final, and a couple of people had sent it to me and they're like, are you watching this? The commentary is excellent. The waves are absolutely pumping and the surfers are ripping. And I turned it on and it's like, holy cow, it looks so good.
By the way, off the radar spot to go surf.
Yeah.
Northern Sumatra mainland. That's where it was, right? It was on the mainland of India.
I didn't look at a map to see where it was, but
I'm sure that's where Krui is.
But the waves are pumping, man.
I know, and it was fun for you to watch it. I did see some waves of consequence, guys getting hammered.
Yeah. Well, moving on from WSL conversation, have you caught up? Kelly Slater's Lost Tapes episode 2 aired on Sunday.
No, I haven't. There's a lot going on. I can watch that anytime. I got live sports to watch. NHL, Padres, golf.
No, but now that you're this far behind, you're never going back to catch up.
Never know. A couple of years from now.
I'll bring you up to speed. Listeners are watching this. I got to this episode, I think 2 days after it aired, and already had 100,000 down or views on YouTube, which in the surf world is a lot. And so people are actually watching this. This episode is centered around his time at Bell's in 2019. He's staying with Alan Green and his wife. I think his wife's name is Barbara. Mm-hmm. So Alan was one of the co-founders of Quicksilver, and Kelly has known him for decades. And it was such a intimate, private look behind the scenes of Kelly's lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And this is what I was saying the value of the series was last week. If it's not excavating hard truths about Kelly's soul, it's at least a peek behind the scenes. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that has value. And so I just loved seeing that kind of aspect of it.
Yeah.
Totally endearing seeing him with kind of friends in that way.
There's also almost family, that's
for sure.
The thing about Kelly is that he's got these little pods of families everywhere. And it's interesting that the Greens were kind enough to open up to the filmmakers. And that speaks to their family relationship with Kelly, because Kelly had to go, hey, do you mind?
I mean, Kelly said, I trust this guy.
Yeah.
Alec Parker. Yeah. And we have full right of refusal for everything on the edit.
Yeah.
But the other thing was they take him to this school in Victoria or Torquay that students, it's like a surf school, but it's all the normal, like they're learning, they go to math class, but they learn about surfing in the math class. Like they apply the math equation, maybe geometry, to the way that a wave is breaking. So it's applied, it's all the subjects applied to real world, but for surfing. So you hear surf school and you think, oh, they're at the beach getting pushed into waves or something like that. They probably have a also that, but this is also in the classroom. It's all surf related content,
Yeah.
and then they take Kelly there and Kelly does like a little, speech. But I just thought to myself, how cool is that? And how much further ahead are there amateur surfers than American surfers?
Yeah, that it is really cool, isn't it? It made me start to think about school districts and who runs the schools and who has the power to create curriculum and who has the power to implement what's the word, pedagogy, no yeah,
I'm not sure.
Pedagogy.
Well,
Yeah.
I would never sacrifice my kids' education for surfing, but if the education is actually if it's equally robust and it's more engaging to the student, then it would be argued that the student's actually getting way more out of that math class than a traditional math class. Because let me tell you, as somebody who went to public school in Southern California, I didn't learn anything ever. I was trying to get away with doing nothing and succeeding.
I want you to subtract from 100 by 7. Go.
Subtract from 100 by 7.
Fail.
I don't think that wording's even correct. Do you mean 100 minus 7?
Yeah, subtract from 100 by 7.
By 7. Okay, maybe
that is correct wording.
Okay. See, I didn't do well in grammar class either.
Can you do it?
Yeah, 93 is 100 minus 7.
So keep going.
Oh, and keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Shoot. 86, 79, 72, 65.
Oh my, okay, that's
58,
you
51.
That's
yeah, you're right then.
Yeah.
You're right. The wording is correct then, I guess, if that was the exercise. But at any rate, seeing Kelly with the kids, in addition to their having a cool program, seeing Kelly with the kids was really endearing. He goes on the podcast Ain't That Swell. They did a live show during the Bells event. Yeah. So he went on there and he's quick. He's joking with the guys, and those guys are comedians essentially. So they're cracking fast jokes. Kelly's right there with him. The final thought that I had on this series, or the value I think that it's going to serve the most for Kelly, was I was thinking about other surfer owned clothing brands. You got John John's, Florence Marine X. You've got Dane Reynolds with Former. One thing that John and Dane have done really well is to utilize their own content. They almost cut everybody out when they were starting their clothing company and just said, all the content that we've been allowing people to showcase of us, we're going to corral all that content now, and we're going to own it, and we're going to leverage it to market our clothing brand, essentially, is what they've done. And they've done a really good job of that. And I feel like Kelly completely missed the point on that. So anytime you see Kelly associated with Outer Known, it might be imagery in the Outer Known catalog or Instagram or whatever, but it's not him going out and creating an edit until now. This whole series is brought to you by Outer Known. And I feel like it really, it's his first foray into the vlogosphere, into creating kind of serialized content that showcases what we want to see. We want to see Kelly. We want to see behind the scenes. We want to see him free surfing. So this is a serialized, weekly, episodic thing, giving us what we want and also showcasing his brand in practical usage. He's wearing it. He's using it. It's, I think it's a perfect commercial for Outer Known, and I'm surprised it's taken this long for him to kind of figure out that detail.
Well, cool. And where can people see it? Because I do want to watch it. Like as you know, we're all huge Kelly fans because of this, because he brings us behind the scenes a little bit, behind the curtain, so to speak. And where can we see it?
YouTube.
And do we just Google?
I think the Kelly Slater Lost Tapes. I think it's on the WSL's channel is the one that's actually publishing the episodes.
Yeah.
But again, I think that's a misstep. I think Outer Known should be publishing the episodes. Again, keep the content private, or not private. it's public, but own the content. And that is your communication with your customer base. There's no need for the WSL to be involved in this, as far as I can see. And I really hope that this series continues infinitely or in perpetuity, indefinitely, because I just think seeing Kelly behind the scenes as he's traveling around the world is interesting. And I'm a fan. I'm a bigger fan of Kelly because of it. And I see it being a perfect vehicle for him to market his brand.
I got a question for you, going in a different direction, if you don't mind.
Yep.
We've got 2 more events, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, 3 more or 2 more? Yeah, we got J Bay. So we go
Rio,
to J Bay
J-Bay,
next.
Chopa.
Yeah, okay. So it might be a little early for this, but as we stand now, who's your rookie of the year on the CT?
It's got to be between Sammy Pupo, Caleb Robson, and Jackson Baker, I would think. Does that sound right?
Well,
Am I missing somebody?
The one I'm looking at is Baron Mamiya.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about Baron.
I know, isn't it weird? Like, we kind of forget about Baron. He's in a really good spot.
He's in 9th place. Yeah, Caleb's in 8th because Caleb made the final at Bells. But Baron, the reason I didn't think of him was because he didn't qualify for Tour through the traditional method. He got in as a wild card.
Really?
But I like him the best. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Because he won Sunset Beach.
He got in at Pipe. Let me look at his ranking at Pipe. I forget. He did really well at Pipe.
He must have got a quarterfinal at Pipe.
Maybe he got 9th. Yeah, he got 9th at Pipe. He was the event wild card. So then they gave him the wild card into Sunset. He won that. And then he was not invited to the next event, but he got in as a replacement because somebody got injured, and he got last place there. He got last place at the next event as a replacement. But because of those couple of big scores early in the season, he was able to make the cut.
Baron Mamiya's made the cut. He's only 5,000 something points away from being in the top 5, understanding that means somebody in the top 5 doesn't do well and drops down a little bit. But Baron Mamiya is right there with, let's just throw away Brazil. I mean, he's got the air game to do well there, but there's a lot up against him. It's probably his first time, I'm assuming, competing in Brazil at this level. It's a lot of travel. We're like more than halfway through. As a rookie, this starts to wear on you, the travel. You're not used to this. All these older guys, they've been doing this forever. They're like, yep, go here, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's a little bit more comfortable. Baron's a rookie from Hawaii. Things might not be quite as simple for him. So let's throw Brazil away and go, okay, he's going to J Bay. As uncomfortable as that is from a travel perspective, he's going to love the wave. And then he goes to Chopu. Baron Mamiya, an interesting guy here that's way under the radar.
Yeah, I like it. It's funny to compare him and Caleb Robson because let's dissect. Why is Baron so much more interesting to discuss, look at, watch, surf, yet Caleb's 1 spot ahead of him?
I don't know. Caleb's like vanilla.
It really, truly.
To me,
is it because they're both mild mannered? Like if you hear them talk, it's not as if Baron's full of personality or something like that. They're both kind of monotone, short on words. But Baron, I guess it is literally just their surfing. You watch Baron stand up on a wave and you're like, there's flair. And Caleb, I can't remember a wave that he surfed, even though he made a final.
Me either. He's like the classic. Caleb's like, any number of guys where you're like, take him or leave him. But with Baron, we know, first of all, he's the pipe specialist. He's easily in the top 3 of pipeline specialists. Would you agree with that?
Top 5 for sure.
John Kelly and Baron.
What about Jamie O'Brien?
Jamie's pretty long in tooth relative to Baron Mamiya. I'm not saying that okay, but I mean on the
there's 5. Yeah. Oh, okay. On the tour. Yeah.
So, I mean, he's the guy that, Kelly's going, this is the guy,
Yeah. So I think as I'm thinking about it further, his surfing has a lot more flair, but also Barron laid a lot of groundwork in our awareness for years before he qualified for the tour.
Yeah.
So we'd see edits periodically, and he did a good job of giving us a pipe edit, an air edit, and we kind of were aware of his arsenal.
Yeah.
And when he showed up, then the question was, we know this free surfer, how is he going to translate that to competitive surfing? And he did very successfully. Caleb shows up. We don't know who he is from Jackson Baker, from any, of the other Aussie kind of Wade Carmichael power surfer. So, and then he doesn't have the flair either. So he hasn't like solidified that in our brain of who he is, what he does, and how he does it. So there's too many surfers for us to pay attention to. If he's not demanding our attention, we're not going to give it to him.
Is he regular foot or goofy foot? Quickly?
He's regular.
Okay.
Beat Durbich 2.0 is who he is.
I was going to say that, but he's not as lanky, but he's more, I'm not sure who he is. He's kind of Morgan
Siblick. Not even though. Morgan was better, I feel.
Morgan's a little spicier, huh?
Yeah, Morgan had that flair.
Well, anyway, Barry Mamiya is my choice right now for Rookie of the Year, but regardless of that, he's interesting to watch here as we move through these next three events. Is he going to fall off the face of the earth and drop down, or is he going to rise, knowing that this Rio event, I mean, if you're Barry Mamiya, you're going, you know what? If I can get through the elimination round, it's a win for me. But he does have the air game that you could see him in the final. You could see Barry Mamiya in the final here.
You could, but it would be a surprise. Whereas if he made the final at J-Bay, you wouldn't be surprised, or Chopu.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I agree with you. He's my, I'll co-sign your pick for Rookie of the Year. And also, I'm thrilled to see how unflappable he's been in competition.
Yeah, I agree.
He draws gnarly heats, and he elevates, he pushes people to their limit.
He's one of the, I mean, when you think of pipe specialists, you go, okay, yeah, this guy rips at pipe, how's he going to do? Barry Mamiya has got NSSH. He's got so much competitive chops. I mean, he's surfed in so many competitive heats, but this is like, he kind of has the best of both worlds. He's a pipe specialist that's also put in tons of the hard yard doing competitive surfing around, North America, at least.
Totally. I'm a fan, and I'm excited to see him surf more.
Yeah.
I've got a must-see moment. Do you have anything else on the docket?
No, let's go to your must-see moment.
I did not click play on this for a week because I almost didn't care. But yesterday I wanted to do my due diligence for the show. So I clicked on Stab Magazine's cheat codes.
Oh,
John Florence talking about duck diving.
Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it?
It's so did you actually watch this episode, or did you watch the old one of him doing the duck dive?
I watched the old one that they put on Instagram from years ago where he's in the pool.
Yeah. Totally. And so I remember that episode of Tour Notes with Peter King, and it was fascinating. Well, basically they do a deep dive into that in this episode of Cheat Codes. And I've never thought that much about duck diving in my life, mainly because I'm duck diving 3-foot mushy waves all the time. You don't really need a lot of technique, and there's not a lot of consequence. Yeah. And I'm never going to be faced with the consequence that requires John's level of expertise. However, it was excellent. This episode, super well written. So first of all, shout out to Danny Johnson, who's now a staffer at Stab Magazine, because Danny wrote it, did the narration for it, and I think he did the editing as well. But it's excellently written, epically produced. It's full of
give me another E word. Give me another E word. It's excellently and it's epically
and exquisitely narrated by Danny. It's full of archival footage and imagery. So if you're just a fan of surfing and they're referencing like, John starts talking about smaller boards, riding small boards, and they go, well, actually the kind of turning point was Kelly Slater in 2008, that big muddy year at Backdoor and Pipe, where I think he was against Timmy Reyes in the final. Kelly rode a 5.9, or maybe it was a 5.11, but the volume was distributed heavily at the nose. So it had like all the same volume as a larger board, but it was shrunken down, and that became the wizard sleeve. And the wizard sleeve was named by Benji Weatherly. And they're showing you the imagery, the clips, the videos, giving you all the context of how that board came to be, and the transition from riding bigger boards in those style of waves to riding smaller boards, and how that influenced John to ride his smaller boards. Little details like that they're just sprinkling in throughout makes it super interesting and compelling, not just a duck dive tutorial, but like a kind of history lesson for a lot of other aspects of surfing. So there's a bunch of technical stuff as well, like John talking about there's a what they call the low impact zone when you're duck diving. So people think you want to be farther away from the impact zone. John explains, no, in big certain waves, being close to the impact zone actually has this little bubble of protected energy. And so but it's difficult to be in that spot. If you see that wave coming, you want to paddle quickly, but not too quickly, because if you're too close into the impact zone, you're going to get blown up, but not too slowly, because if you're 2 feet back, you're going to get sucked back. So you want to be just in that little pocket, judging the wave to where it's going to break, to know where that little low impact zone is going to be. Little technical information like that was super useful.
Yeah, I love it. And
yeah,
those are little nuances that you notice as a surfer over your career in the water. Oh, you know what? I think if I'm right here, I'm going to slither through this little zone. And it's happened, and it hasn't happened. I've mistimed it, or you've mistimed it, or whatever. But you know what he's talking about. You're like, yeah, I know that little spot where sometimes you're like, wow, how did I just bust through this thing?
Well, the other one that would be very helpful is coming up from the duck dive, like you push down when you're ready to come up, turning the board sideways. So it's perpendicular. And that obviously will go up to the surface a lot quicker.
And frankly, turning it when you do your push down into the whitewater, when you're approaching it, I always tilt my board down.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
There you go. When you duck dive, do you use your knee or your foot?
Knee.
Yeah.
Which is probably wrong. I think foot's probably better.
It's correct. John uses his knee, and that came up at some point in conversation, and whoever he was talking to said that most people actually use their foot. And I thought that was backwards. I think most people use their knee. I can't imagine using your foot.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I do know that the knee has just been my go-to. And poor John 4 over at the Board Source, when I turn boards in, man, the right side of my board on the deck, it's just the knee delams are just, the knee dings are just through the roof. It's just concaved on that side of my boards. And John 4's like, I love your boards, but they're always just ruined back here,
That's hilarious. I think my knee is down at the tail pad when I'm pushing on a duck dive.
Oh, tail pad. I missed that by like 5 years. I'm not a tail pad guy.
I forgot. That's right. All right. Well, anyways, cheat codes. I saw Sam McIntosh said he's got a whole series of these queued up. They're not all with John. One is on Brad Gerlach, talking about how all of his body mechanics are based on one image that he saw or that he has in his mind of Tom Curran. So
I love that.
From a backside, from a backside snap to a frontside barrel to a bottom turn to high line trim, all based on one image of Tom Curran.
That's cool.
If you just keep your body in that position. I think it's
probably a bottom turn, an image of Tom doing a bottom turn. I'm assuming. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
cool.
It's a cool series. That was episode 1. I'm into it. Must see.
There's some other cool stuff. If you're a Stab Premium member, and we have no connection to Stab. In fact, I'm just telling you that I'm a premium member because I support what Stab's doing. I had a talk with Evan Slater on our podcast last week. If you get a chance, check out the Boardroom podcast with Evan Slater. He's the vice president of global marketing at Billabong, and he's also a guy who I've known for a long time. He used to be my boss at Surfer Magazine when he was the editor there. And I forget where I was going with this, but
something about Stab Premium.
Oh yeah, we were talking about how important Stab is to the culture. Like, who's the authoritative voice editorially? That used to be Surfer and Surfing Magazine, and the Surfer's Journal has a place there too, but it's kind of quarterly or whatever. And we miss that foundational cultural voice that came in the mailbox every month, you know, like, okay, what surfer got to say? And we're in this new digital age now. And Stab and Sam and his whole crew, Michael, Cia Morella, and Ashton, all of those guys are, frankly, they're the editorial cultural voice of authority right now. And they're owning it and they're killing it. And again, you and I have nothing to do with Stab. And I would even argue that they're probably anti what we do.
They're not.
But the point is that they've got a new thing, the DNA of the Colapinto brothers, but it's premium. So do yourself a favor. I forget how much we pay every year, but is it like $60 or $70 or something? It doesn't matter. It's worth it, is my point. Whatever the number is, the amount of great editorial content I'm getting from Stab is unreal. And frankly, I go to Stab to prep for the show. You know,
yeah.
It's one of my go-to places.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's enough about Stab. But
I totally agree. They've only gone from they've only gotten stronger. I think ever since they went premium and they've got that funding, they've utilized that funding to expand and improve their offerings, which is awesome.
Yeah, they're doing great work over there.
Yeah.
And
totally.
I would like to see a competitor. I would like to see somebody else in the space, you know, step up and do the same level so that we have these two great, kind of like Surfer and Surfing, where they made each other get better, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I agree. More content is better.
Until next time, David. Adios and aloha.